All right. Hi, everyone. It is Candace Craw-Goldman again from quantumhealers.com. And I am back today with Patricia Grootjans. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Candace. Nice to be here again.
Nice to be here too. So I will almost certainly release these right in a row. These, I'm sure we'll probably do another part after this one. So today's part two. Now for us, because when people watch this, part one and part two will be released probably consecutive days. It's only been a day for you people who are watching, but for us, it's been, I guess, about a month, right,
Yes, I
Patricia?
think so. Yeah,
What is going on with the time? Where is it
yeah.
going? Where is it going?
Incredible, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
It's astonishing. It's astonishing. Okay, I don't even know what we're going to talk about yet, and I'm already filled with goosebumps.
Yes,
That's extraordinary.
yeah. I had the same right before we got on this call. Yeah.
Okay, so um,
And I could feel that there was something about water that
oh yes,
would probably be.
it is all about the water. So first of all, as long as we're talking about this, and I know that we want to do this, I want everyone to look at this right here. I am going to, because I couldn't hold up the real book because I couldn't put my hands on it this morning. I am going to edit in a picture right there of Patricia's book called Oceans of Love. And by the way, Patricia, just, the grand compliment you gave for allowing me to help you with that book by writing a brief, intro. Thank you so much. But, so much of your story starts right there. But we are,
Yeah, yeah,
of course, talking a whole lot then about this one too, your newly
yeah,
released one. And I just opened my package yesterday.
yeah.
So,
Great.
and because of that, Patricia, and because of how crazy my life always seems to be, I've only gotten through chapter one and part of chapter two. But I know that you'd be excited to come back and continue talking as we continue talking about everything, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Because I feel that the theme of the book is very much in line with your process and your connection with water. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And of course, we're learning so much more and more and more about that. And it's even coming into my mind to say, it almost sounds like an ad. Maybe it will be one day. As far as I know, BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, is the only quantum healing method that focuses on the use of water. And VEDA
yeah,
Austin has been saying water is medicine, and we are learning so much about water. Before I get too far, on
yeah.
the previous version, we were talking about of course, it's water, right? We're talking about the little town in France that I visited where I had my
Oh
Jesus
yes,
experience and
yeah,
where the well water was and where the house of Nostradamus was. And you asked me if it was, and I don't want to say it improperly, but there's another Nostradamus house. He lived in more than one place, right?
yeah.
Um, so you can go visit that particular place, but I found the name of the little town where I was, where all of this happened, and it's called Alet-les-Bains. Alet-les-Bains, and I
Ah,
think it means like the special chosen place.
yeah,
And so that is where I had my experience, and this is also the little town talks about this place being the place of the magical elixir of water
wow, that's
that
so
comes from
beautiful,
that well there.
amazing. Yeah, and can you imagine it? I mean, it was a long time ago, wasn't it, that you had that experience, and it was
It
already
was.
about water,
It
about
was.
sacred water.
It was. And so much was happening right then. So much of the buildup and the pieces of my life were arranging themselves. This was the summer of 2015. I was still officially still connected with official QHHT and the official family. I knew it was coming to an end. In my mind, I wanted to get through this trip, get my ducks in a row, and then formally separate from that
Yeah,
community. But I wasn't sharing that. I wasn't sharing that publicly. Of course, I wasn't sharing it because I was still running the support forum community. And I didn't want to interrupt everyone's life, but I saw what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was even more eventful, shall we say, than I even anticipated was going to come. But you know what? It was one of the best things that ever happened. It was one of the best things that ever happened was to be publicly canceled in a time when people didn't even use that term, being canceled. And I
Yeah.
was completely publicly canceled. And you know what? It was always sort of like, well, yeah, that happened. And yeah, people are thinking strange things about me that aren't true and that
Yeah.
don't align. And anyone who really knows me knows any of that cannot be true. But I
Yeah.
just kept staying true to myself. And wow, that has, you know what that really has? That has me focusing on something you wrote in your book. I made the tiniest little note. You said you didn't want to lose yourself in groups
Yeah.
and you didn't want to search for special experiences.
Yeah.
Do you know
Exactly.
that's the all of what you've written so far. Again, I'm in like in the first few pages of chapter 2. I'm hardly anywhere into this book. That sentence was nothing about the crystal skull or the Arcturians or Jesus or anything. That sentence
Yeah. Yeah.
floored me because I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And we are still, and I'm talking about we as humans. I swear to God, I'm going to let you talk. And people are like, that woman just can't stop talking. Um, we are still looking for those special experiences, even by doing our work, right? Even by
Exactly.
saying we're doing BQH or we're doing other quantum healing methods or quantum healing journeys or sessions.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to sound crazy, but to have those experiences is to not go looking for them, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point. Yeah. And it's really amazing that you just picked up this sentence from the book because to me that was the starting point of starting with quantum healing. And because I did came from an experience which was well quite traumatic, actually, and I had been in this group after my near-death experience where well my brain wasn't functioning right, and I couldn't do much. I couldn't walk. I could barely talk. Um, so someone introduced me to a Buddhist group back then, and a friend of mine told me, well, if you would join that group and join the meditations, maybe that will settle down your system and you would recover more quickly. And well, long story short, it turned out to be kind of a cult-like situation. And for me, the experience lasted quite short compared to the other people in that group who had been there for many, many years, like 10, 50 years. And so for me, it was about, well, maybe 9 months. And the whole thing collapsed while I was there, and as I got pregnant in that time.
9 months too, that you even say that you were there for 9 months. You know, the
Yeah,
connections just keep being made. And
yeah, yeah. Well, and it was really, I think, one of the most important lessons in my life because I never was really someone who would look up to teachers or gurus. I never had that. I mean, I come from a rural background and we're quite down to earth. So we didn't have that kind of admiration for teachers or authorities.
or movie stars, I bet, right?
Exactly.
Movie
Yeah,
stars, people give them such a pedestal and ooh and awe over them. And I've always been like, they're just people.
exactly. Yeah. So I was quite surprised that I found myself in that situation, but I've learned so much from it because I started to, well, interview a lot of spiritual teachers and also people who came out of a cult situation. And what I discovered that there was always a kind of a pattern that people who got into this situation where they would be vulnerable um, or being manipulated into a cult or something like that, nearly everyone had father issues or some mother issues, but in this case, it was mostly father issues, like having missed a father from their lives, or having lost a father since young, or having a father who was not emotionally available. And so many people were looking for a parent, those people who were vulnerable, to be influenced by a spiritual teacher to the extent that it was unhealthy. So after that, I got really, really very alert to how people would deal with a teacher, a spiritual teacher. So when I met Dolores, of course, I mean, all my antennas were out like, how are people interacting with this teacher? Are they putting her on a pedestal? And I think I never did that. So, and of course, I admire her and I have huge respect for her.
Yes.
Um, but it taught me to always stay true to your inner teacher. And that's why I really was so fond of Dolores and quantum healing, because what she was teaching people with quantum healing was to connect with your inner teacher, with your higher self. And yet, in the situation, um, well, where we found ourselves with Dolores, I could see a similar pattern happening there again in that community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I was really glad when you started Beyond Quantum Healing and your platform, because I think you offered everything that I was looking for in terms of how do you deal with a teacher? Like, we are all each other's teachers, and we should be equal. And I think, yeah, you have that touch that I really, really, yeah, want to feel when I connect with a group. Like, it gives you space, it gives you freedom, it gives you the space to be who you are.
Right? We all want to expand. And I have never really understood this idea of it's sort of like it's such an old way of thinking, like I found something, I figured something out, so now this is it, and we don't do anything else, and then that stops. And then that's that's the beginning of contraction. And Dolores was all about expansion, really, until she
Yeah,
died. And then the kind of the
yeah,
behemoth of what it is kind of, but it's so strange because it is contracting internally, and yet her message is so powerful. It's more
yeah,
popular now, which I am so
exactly.
grateful for. That just proves how incredibly powerful, unique, and how true to herself Dolores was, no matter
Yeah,
what's happening behind the scenes now.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Patricia, I have to ask you a couple other things. So, first of all, that whole father thing, that looking for a father, it occurred to me as you were talking. Governments around the world have, and especially here in the States, have been um, supporting the idea of the breakup of the family,
Oh,
supporting the
really?
idea of the nuclear family not being as important, the
Oh,
traditional nuclear family. So
yeah,
if there is no father, where do the children? I mean, the government steps in to be the father figure, right? And
oh,
I
yeah,
think that was a big problem starting, oh, I don't know, about 4.5 years ago.
yeah,
During the early part of 2020. And I think that explains a great deal about how many people just did what they were told.
exactly, exactly. I was thinking the same thing back then, and especially how you could see how people would interact with all the regulations that the governments were, bringing to the people. I mean, you could see that some would really follow blindly, and but it's all about how do you deal with authority and how do you deal with your father as an example of your first authority, if you had the privilege of having a father in your life, of course, because not everyone has that. But then there will always be something else that would replace that father, either a person or an institution, or there's always something with who is the archetypal, how is that the English word?
It
Father and authority. And it's so important that we are looking for that authority in ourselves. Yeah.
this is important, Patricia, and I know that I've sort of said this before in other ways, but so much of what helped me see through all of that was because of my mother in Nazi Germany. But you know what? What's so fantastically mind-bending to me is how captured my mother was with pharma towards the end of her life. I actually believe she died because of Vioxx. Vioxx is known now and has been taken off the market for causing strokes, and that's what my mother died from. But happily, she didn't go through COVID. She died in 2016. But I've often thought, as I have my daddy still upstairs right now, if my mother would have been around, she would have rolled up her sleeve immediately. This is the same person, though, who told me that the Nazis used that phrase, this is for your safety, this is for your safety, only for your safety. I learned that from my mother.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she would have recognized this coming from that place. She would have recognized it from a government, but not from her doctor and all of those drugs that she liked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yes. Well, let's talk about other things. Let's
if I
move
may,
on. One more thing I want to clarify, because I was finding myself in my mind a little bit muddled about something, and I looked it up before this morning. And you moving to, Lake Constance and it being in your book, and I'm in chapter 2, and right now you're just talking about it and getting things ready to go move to Lake Constance. And in the first interview that we did, you did talk about the Bodensee, right? The Bodensee. Well, so I didn't realize we're talking about the same, but that was just me going, I'm not listening well enough. I didn't realize that. So now I have to tell you something. This is part of the goosebumps for me. And I need to look it up, but it's somewhere around 19, maybe 93 or 4, maybe 94, 3 or 4. I went to Passau with my mother and my children. And we, it was a visit to visit my Aunt Irmi. Irmi was the half sister still alive in Germany of my mother. She was much younger than my mother, but we went to the Bodensee.
Really?
And so I took a yes, but this is the thing that happened that I never even thought about this until like 10 minutes ago, right? Well, 20 minutes ago. Like I looked it up right before we got on the tour boat to go on that lake. I had my camera, and I don't exactly know how it happened, but one of my kids had it, and it was just a 35 millimeter camera. This is long before digital phones or anything like that. And they knocked it, and they knocked it, and it hit the ground, and the lens internally. So I didn't really realize it at first, but the lens internally shattered. The internal it became I was taking no more photos on our trip to Germany. But what has come to my understanding with shattering of glass, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this.
No?
There's always something, always in my own life, when a glass shatters, something happens, and I'm leaning towards like either revelation or a timeline marker.
Oh, yes.
Or a timeline shift, right?
Yeah.
And so that happened, Patricia.
Wow.
Before I stepped onto this boat.
Ah, that's really amazing.
Onto that water.
Wow. And you do realize that glass is also made of crystal, right?
Of course. Of course.
So that's really amazing. That's really amazing.
The more I read your book, and there's so so many connection points. So we have a lot to talk about. But
Yeah.
where on the beautiful lake are you? Because it's like this long, a
Yes.
oblong, finger-shaped kind of lake. Where are you on
Yeah,
that?
that's right.
Describe, where
Well,
are you?
well, we visited a place in the Switzerland um, part of the Bodensee, because the Bodensee, or Lake Constance, uh, is the English word for it.
Friends,
Uh,
yeah.
so it unites Germany, Switzerland, and then a part of Austria and even Liechtenstein. And so we went to the Swiss part, and we found a little town village called Romanshorn. And I have no idea why we went there. We just followed our intuition, like we should be there. And it appeared to be a beautiful place. It had this really Mediterranean vibe. And there was a boat going from Romanshorn to um, Freiburg, I believe it's called, to Germany.
I know where Freiburg is. Absolutely. I've
Yes.
been there too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And you know, something really interesting happened there because well, during the sessions and channelings, I had received a lot of information why I should be there, why I should move to Lake Constance. And so 2 years ago, I visited it for the first time with my son and a friend. And I write about this in the book, of course, because it felt so important. But it was also during the time that my father was terminally ill. And even before we left, I was having strong doubts, like, will he be still there if I come home? But I felt that I had to go there. And, uh, and normally I would always be someone who would put myself on the second place. And, you know, but this felt as such a strong calling, like I need to be there. But of course, then you go with expectations, right? And it's best to go to a place without expectations. Normally, I'm quite good at having no expectations and just step into experiences quite openly, but I couldn't do that. There was too much lingering, and there were so many messages that I received. So there were some expectations. And one of the expectations was that they told me that, and they, I mean my Arcturian friends, they told me that I would meet beings or have some kind of um, visual experience of the Arcturians. And now I went there to activate a crystal that is connected to the Arcturians. So, and so we did the activation, but there was a lot happening back then. So it didn't really go all as I would have hoped. But looking back at the experience, I think everything happened what was supposed to happen because it
Of course.
appeared to be a clearing, like as if I needed to release old residue from old experiences where I would have felt suppressed or treated badly. And this all came up during that week. And but because I was really sad during that week because certain things that happened, I found it very difficult to keep my vibration high. And I know that if you want to connect with higher beings, such as the Arcturians, that you need to have a high vibration. And otherwise, it would be, well, maybe impossible to connect on their level and to make that connection. So, as much as I tried, I just couldn't let go of all the sadness and everything what was happening back then. So we managed to do the activation of the crystal, which was really beautiful. And I took a lot of pictures from the Bodensee because I could feel it. I could feel their presence. And it was so funny because at some point, my son, who was 13 back then, yeah, I think he was 13, you know,
I
he was
just
swimming
read
in the
that he
water.
was 13. I
Yeah.
just look at me telling you how old your kid was.
Yeah, because I forget so easily. But at some point, I was talking with my friend. We were sitting in the grass, and my son was in the water, and he was trying to draw my attention, but I was having such a strong conversation that I kind of ignored him, really, to be honest. And then he started pointing to the sky, and I was looking up to the sky, and it was this huge, oh, how do you call this? Zeppelin. I'm not sure if that's the English word.
Yeah, Zeppelin's right. Or
Mhm.
yeah. Oh no, it's called something else. It's called an airship sometimes. Yeah.
Ah, yes. I think that's a really appropriate word. But it was so funny. It was hovering right above my head. And while we were talking about UFOs and looking up, there was this Zeppelin. It was quite funny, but it wasn't what I was looking for, of course. So, but anyway, I started to write about the Bodensee and Lake Constance in my book. And right on the day where my book was finished, and I would click on publish when I uploaded it to Amazon. Something happened because my friend who I have two friends who did the editing, one for the text and the other for the visuals for um, the how do you call that, the graphic part, let's say.
Illustration.
And so she was looking at the pictures that I have included in the book because I've included a picture of the Bodensee because I felt that would be important because of the vibration. And she said, did you use a filter on that picture? Because she says the sky is never that blue. And I said, well, I can't recall. I don't think I did. But then my son, Manoa, said, well, he said, yes, I use a filter. So Lucia said, well, try to find the original picture without a filter because that would probably be much more beautiful for the book. So, and I wasn't sure if I would agree with it, but I know that she's really a professional. So I thought, okay, let's look for the original. And so when I found the original picture, which is now in the book, by the way, um, I saw something on the picture and I thought it was, like a little bit of dust. And I tried to rub it away with my hand, but I couldn't rub it away. So I thought, oh, wow, it's exactly, exactly. And I thought, oh, there is something in the sky. It isn't dust on the camera lens. There is something in the sky. So, yes. And um, yeah, I can't see it with my eyes right now, but it's too small for me to see. But anyway, when I had the picture on my computer, I tried to zoom in on that sky, on that little bit of dust, and we were zooming in, and then we saw that it was a shape that was not a plane, it was not a zeppelin. And my son, who really knows a lot about UFOs by now, he said, "Mom," he says, "I really think that that was a UFO." And so,
You had a
right,
screen memory. You had like a screen memory.
exactly,
Dolores calls them screen memories. Yeah.
really, yeah,
Yeah, when she's like I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
no,
she had
please,
an experience where she saw a 4 foot tall white owl in a road. And later, when she was asking about it, they said, no, you didn't see a 4 foot tall owl. That was an ET, but it was a memory that your brain, your physiology could accept at the time. Because
exactly,
we don't realize that as humans, we think, oh, I want to have that experience. It's kind of like, I have horses. So it's kind of like if I met a cheetah in my woods with my horse would want to get the hell out of there
yeah,
just so instantaneously and so violently that it
yeah,
couldn't really look at a cheetah. So when you think that you're a human and you want to see an alien or a star brother or sister, great, so do I. But you are in this physiology that is going to
exactly,
react in maybe ways that wouldn't allow the interaction to happen at all. So your
yeah.
consciousness gives you a screen memory, Dolores and the owl, maybe you and the Zeppelin.
Ah, that's
An
really
idea.
beautiful. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, because it felt like the synchronicity of discovering this on the day that I would want to publish the book. And so I even had a thought like, should I leave it out? But I thought, no, I'm going to put the picture in the book because I know that it carries a certain frequency. And I think it will be the starting point for the next book. Yeah.
So while you're talking, so while you're talking, I flip through the book and I find the only color, which is cool. I know that's not easy to do, to pick one picture out and make it color. I mean, I know these things, even though I can't say I'm a published author just quite yet. But while you're talking about this, there's just a word that comes out to me on the other side of the picture, and that's diamond. And I have something to say about that, unless you want to say it first.
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, sometimes when I think about how much I talk during these things, I get so excited. So in the first episode of this series, we talked about the tandem session that we did in the BQH immersion class. So now it's been, well, it was the first part of May, and it is to the end of May now. So it's been about a month too since we did this immersion class, but we talked about connecting with Dolores, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what she talks about insofar as, so anybody out there, you people out there who listen to all the Dolores videos, she talks about they and them, right? She does that a lot. She termed that the subconscious. I think that was kind of simplistic in a lot of ways, but it suffices. Let's just say it suffices. Let's say there's a certain channel of they or them that she tuned into, right? I don't think it's the same across the board. I think those assumptions can or are made, and I don't believe that's true. I didn't believe it years ago. I really don't believe it now. However, it doesn't mean it's not available to you out there, you people out there who think this is so fantastic, because it is available. And some of the tandem session that we did talks about that, but this is what she says. So right outside the sliding glass doors where Donna and I were laying on the floor like that, you can see the little lake where we were doing this on this lake house.
Oh, wow.
Version. And the sun was on the water. And what she pointed out was, look at that light right now. Look at the sunlight on the water. Do you see those diamond glinting energies? That is one way that you connect, if you keep that in your mind. So what is it you're really thinking about? The human eye is looking at water with the sun on it, and it is glinting back to you with this visual, incredible information that you can use. You can tune into those diamond glints.
Yeah, that's right.
For healing and for connection in all of the ways that you've been speaking about.
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful that you mentioned this, because I think this is really the essence of the book, and which is why I called it The Healing Light of Water. Because what I discovered during my quantum healing travelings with B is that water is, well, for me, it is God. It comes from source, but it also comes from the cosmos. And it has been called a liquid light. It's like the liquid translation of light and the sun, and not only the material sun, let's say, but also the energetical sun, the ethereal sun. And and that you bring up diamonds is really, really amazing, because during the initiations that we received while I was writing this book, I think one of the most profound initiations was by Joshua, where he would place a diamond in the heart, in my heart, and he would bring it up to the throat, as if he wanted to connect the diamond from the heart with the throat chakra, and then he brought it to the third eye. And so there's really something about diamonds and light, isn't it? I think they're quite also like materialized
Yes.
form of light, isn't it?
Yes.
And yeah, that's so, I mean, we discovered so many amazing things that I can hardly understand myself. Like when we were exploring cosmic water, I don't know if we talked about it in the other interview. Did we talk about that?
No, not really, not caught. Well, only I think you mentioned it, but is it further along in the book?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Well,
yeah.
we'll get to it, or we can get to it now, whatever you'd like.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, we could keep it for another time if you.
We're already 38 minutes into this.
Oh, wow.
And I definitely have to stop here in just a little bit, but we can keep going. But if it's better saved, then maybe come back for part 3, those of you out there. But I agree, there's so much more to learn. And I think that uh, there's a real danger. Dolores said this in her books over and over and over again. I thought I knew it all by then. And then
Mhm.
she's given another piece. This is
Exactly.
why this idea of just stopping expansion is it's not helpful. You have to
Exactly.
keep looking. You have to keep
Yeah,
expanding. If
yeah,
you have to. And
yeah.
I think
That's
there's
right.
way more to discover.
Yeah, that's right. And aren't we really blessed to have this tool with Beyond Quantum Healing to go in a trance state and to explore all these realms, and which I feel is much more than just hypnosis. I feel that we are really traveling through dimensions and connecting with other dimensions. I feel like I want to share so much that I think
I know.
maybe
Well,
it's too much for now.
we will keep talking, but as long as we are on diamond and light and water right now, I want to mention once again, I know I mentioned this a lot too, but these tandem sessions are just they're ending up to be so powerful. But in 2019, right before all of the world lost its mind, is
Yeah,
when Pamela Erlin and and Pamela, I've mentioned it, I say it in the course over and over again. She was a huge influence with the water alchemical part of BQH. I nod my head to her as much as Dolores and others who I've, brought
yeah.
elements of what they have to offer. But during that session, Patricia, which also happened right next to a lake, right?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Like was a flashing diamond light that happened in my third eye. You just finished saying putting a diamond right here, right?
Oh,
But here's even a crazier light. So we talked about the diamond light. You can go on our quantum healers channel and look up diamond light and find some of what we talked about, a few years ago. But what I want to mention right now is the room where Pamela and I had this tandem session, which I have been saying, and she also says that session healed us both so extraordinarily well. Just on the other side of the wall was a friend of ours, Samantha O'Hearn, who's a
yeah.
crystal uh, and teacher of, a crystal purveyor and a teacher all on her own. She was having a diamond light experience on the
Wow.
other side of the wall, not knowing anything that was happening in this room on this side of the wall. And she talks about it, and she had this experience, and she writes about it, and she made a crystal grid with quartz crystals all about this diamond light because she was having this fantastic diamond light experience right next to me having it in my third,
Wow.
next to Pam, and
Amazing.
next to the water that healed all of us.
Oh, wow. That is so beautiful.
And that's
And
4.5.
yeah, and it makes sense, doesn't it? Because water is connecting all of us, and so having this kind of experiences next to a body of water makes so much sense because the water will communicate with our body of water, with the water that we carry, that we are. So there's really something, well, I think, how do you say that? That travels through time and space, where water is always connecting
Interdimensional.
people with certain experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to
It's
mention,
connecting us with God. Yeah.
yes, was it you that said this about needing to be near water or people moving near water? Was it you that said that? I absolutely believe that. But at the same time, I want to mention this. One of the things that I had in the room there, and I have now in my where I do my in-person sessions and sometimes shows, I have a big piece of the salt rock that I got from the underground system. So Kansas, one of the reasons Kansas doesn't have trees is because this used to be a sea. We're right in the middle of an ancient sea. So there's no water right here. And a lot of people will say, I couldn't live there. There's no mountains, there's no seas, Well, of course we have lakes, of course we have rivers. My property has there's a meeting place of two.
Wow.
two bodies of water at the south end of our property.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yes, which is it's been a part of a lot of sessions around here when two bodies of water come together like that. But my understanding is the memory and the crystal, like you said, it holds the memory. So even though we're in Kansas, even though we're as far away from any ocean as anybody could be in this country, we have the memory of this giant ancient sea underneath our feet.
Wow. That is so powerful. Yeah.
No water in sight. And yet, like you said in part one, Nostradamus would use water, and you can, and he's told us, and Emoto's even said, just you can put water in a bowl.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Nostradamus did.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that anywhere.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's right. And even what I've discovered is that by tuning into water, no matter if it is near you or by tuning into a river or a lake or an ocean, you're immediately connected with that body of water because the water in our body will align us. And so I think that's really, really important to know because we can work with water because working with water is actually working with the spirit of water. And so there's always this component that water has a physical shape, but it has so many shapes. I mean, it can be fluid, it can be ice, it can be gas, and it even has a fourth phase of water, what Dr. Gerald Pollack calls.
Yes.
Yeah, which is like jelly kind of state of water. And but by tuning into water, you immediately connect with water anywhere. I used that when the whole pandemic started. And I didn't know why, but I just felt intuitively that I needed to do this. I made a meditation for the Qinsha River in China because that river also moves through Wuhan, the place where the pandemic started. And I believe that if you can send heart energy and love to water, to a river or to a lake, that it will immediately activate the water in the people who are living near to that river or lake. So I thought, what else can I do to send healing to all those people? I, th- I thought I can do that by sending healing to the river that is running through that area. So every time that something is happening on Earth, I try to look up like what important river is running there, like the major river, and I try to send healing to that river. And I think that if more people would do that as a collective, I think that would be very powerful in terms of healing, but also raising the frequency of the people living next to the water. And I think last weekend I went to the cinema. There was this documentary movie from New Zealand. It's called I Am the River and the River is Me. And
I
it
saw
is.
that. I mean, I
Did you
haven't,
see it?
no, I didn't see the movie yet, but I saw that it's out there. Yes.
Oh, I could really recommend anyone to go and watch that movie because it was so impressive. And it's about the Maori people who um, made it possible that the river, the Wanganui River, if I pronounce it correctly, um, has now become an entity, a legal entity, like it's become a person, a legal person. So now it has all the rights that a human being would have. and and there's a guardian who protects that river, and of course there's many people protecting that river. But it's so fascinating what those people are sharing about their connection with the water. And there was one man in the documentary, he said that if they would introduce themselves, they would say their name, the tribe, and the river that is next to them, where they come from. Like, what river are you from? I thought it was so beautiful because, yeah, it was a confirmation for me that the river that is close to where you live, um, it's like your entry point. It can be your entry point to communicate with the collective, with the
Can't
divine.
tell you how often it's shown up in my own sessions, right?
Yeah.
And even more interesting is the southern part of the larger river that comes this way on the property. At one place where we cross over to the far end of our property, this river then splits into two. And
Oh,
do you know
wow.
how often I'm in that spot when I have a decision to make?
Wow.
Like in a session, it's like, well, there's this
Exactly.
way and then there's that way, right?
Oh,
And even more fascinating now that you're talking about this, we have so much to talk about. We are
yeah.
definitely, I was like 3 parts. I don't know. We're going to keep probably going if you can come back over and over. But Wichita itself, I think I might have said this last time, but Wichita itself is on the confluence of two rivers. And outside of Kansas, it's called the Arkansas River, but in Kansas, it's called the Arkansas River. Yes, it is, you people out there. I promise it is. I remember being 12 in Florida, and someone was like, it's the Arkansas River. I'm like, not in Kansas, it's not. We call it the Arkansas River. And this teacher was like, oh, you're just wrong. And that was one of my first times when I'm like, you really just don't know, do you? You're
yeah.
adult and you do not know. But there's at the confluence, the whole town of Wichita, which again is much maligned out there. It's not a destination location. This is a great place for a family, but people don't come here to vacation. That's for sure. But right at the confluence of the big Arkansas and the little Arkansas River, is a giant statue by Big Bear Boson. It was the artist who created it, and it's called Keeper of the Plains, and
Oh,
it's right
wow.
at the confluence, and it's hugely powerful. The confluence of
Yeah.
these two rivers, and yes, it was very important. Have you ever heard of? I'm going to have this book for our next time when we talk. Have you ever heard of an author named William Least Heat Moon? William Least Heat Moon.
No.
He wrote a book that I have to say, I'm not sure I have a book. I won't put Dolores's books in any of this, but if I don't think about Dolores's books, I think his book, it's called Prairie Earth, and prairie is spelt a little differently. It's not spelled with a IE at the end. In his book, it's Prary, Prairie Earth, and I think it's ERTH. Anyway, he spells it differently. He calls it's this really big fat book, but he walks the land right here in Kansas, and he calls it a deep map. And he goes
Really?
to different places, and so often it's about the water and the
Really?
things that's underneath his feet. But while you were talking about the rivers, his
Yeah.
second book that I also read was called River Horse, and he did the same thing. He would get on the rivers and he would learn the stories of the rivers. His name
Wow.
is William Least Heat Moon.
Gonna
He
write it down.
Yes, William, and I think he adopted the two middle names, Least, Least, Heat,
Yeah.
Heat, Moon, William Least Heat Moon. Yeah. And at first, when I saw River Horse, I didn't understand the connection. I'm like, wait a second, you went from that to this? Oh my goodness. Of course, there. At first blush, I didn't see the connection because I thought he might do more deep maps, but no, there's
Ah,
very much a connection. And you are talking about the rivers having personality. He talks about that too.
really? Wow.
He
And
really,
and that you described that you have two rivers on your land. I mean, wow. That must be so powerful also to do spiritual work, right?
Huge, huge. And I cannot
Yeah.
tell you how often something is like right there. I mean, the only time I have ever seen, it's a very poisonous snake. It's called a cottonmouth. And the only time I've ever seen a cottonmouth snake was right there, right at the,
Really?
yes, right at the, and but it was in a place that was flat in the wall. Anyway, I saw it immediately and I knew what it was. And I just thought, that's one of the most powerful places to be
Yeah.
here, and you're right on it. And
Wow.
the land, the earth, the physical, you being a rural, you started out early saying that, and I feel the same way too. And let's going all the way back to when we started talking this morning about this idea of the need for special experiences. We keep tending to look outside of ourselves for this, right? And we go searching for it. And yet, over and over again, I mean, I'm tied to the house a lot because of my father. But when I can get away, some of the most incredibly intense and special experience I can have is just being outside, just being in my
Exactly.
body
Yeah.
outside. If you can clear your mind enough
Yeah.
about your duties, what did happen, what's going to happen, what you need to do, what
Yeah.
is on your plate and what hurts, what if you could just be in the now, like you said,
Exactly.
if you could just
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
the gifts that wait for you.
Yeah.
But
And
we don't
connecting
believe it,
with Mother Earth is really a beautiful way to do that.
right? And we don't believe it. We
Yeah,
don't believe
exactly.
it. We think you have to keep you need to, yeah,
People make it so complicated, but it can be so simple.
it really
And
can.
I always like that to keep things simple because I think a lot of things that we're looking for is actually a distraction from what is really what we are looking for. And so, just like you said, connecting with your body, with the now, and yeah, I think that that's
Don't want to hear it though. But the thing about it is if you do go to have a session, sometimes you can feel what that feels like,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
sometimes during the session itself, you're given the gift of understanding about what it's like to really be in your body. And once you touch that or realize that or feel that, it's easier to recreate. And you can recreate it. You don't need a facilitator. You don't even need trance. You don't
yeah,
need that. You just
yeah,
need intention, a little bit of
yeah,
focus, and hopefully
yeah.
not much distraction.
Exactly, exactly. And I guess that is why quantum healing is so powerful because you can really see people as if they're entering their body more deeply when they're going into a trance state, as if they're really sinking into their own body. And it's
Yes.
so beautiful
It really,
simply by removing distractions of the mind and to connect them with what they are feeling, what their body is feeling, and to let them focus on their breathing. These are all things that are so helpful into connecting with the essence, isn't it?
it really is. So, Patricia, we are up on an hour. I've got another appointment coming up. But since I'm only on chapter 2, will you come back? Can we do this
Oh, yes, I would love to. I feel
again?
that we have so much to share. Yeah.
We do, we do. Well, as I read and get into this book, we'll continue our conversation. Okay. I keep writing stuff down. We have not gotten anywhere near all the things that we can talk about and share with our viewers. So thank you for spending some time with me.
Thank you so much for asking me, and I'm happy to come back anytime. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, we'll do it again. Okay. So until then, for those of you who are watching, check us out at quantumhealers.com. You can find Patricia, you can find me, you can find all kinds of quantum healers, not just people who do BQH or QHHT, but other kinds of alternative and energy healers, readers, astrologists, all of that. is available on our website at quantumhealers.com. And if you are a alternative healing practitioner of any kind, please join us. We are a guru-free community. What you do,
Exactly.
how you practice is up to you. And we are all about freedom and self-determination and sharing ideas and learning horizontally. So if that sounds good to you, please join us at quantumhealers.com. Thanks again, Patricia. See you next time.
Thank you, Candace.
Okay.